Welcome to the Plant-Free MD podcast with Dr. Anthony Chafee, where we discuss diet and nutrition and how this affects health and chronic disease, and show you how you can use this to optimize your health and happiness, both mentally and physically. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Plant-Free MD podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Anthony Chafee, and today I have a very special guest, Dr. Nash Jocic, who is a professional bodybuilder and trainer, and is here to tell us about his insights into bodybuilding, nutrition, and training, as well as many other things. So, Dr. Jocic, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's really a pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me, and this is a great opportunity to work with you together, which I really appreciate. And let me introduce myself in few words. Mm-hmm. So I have always been interested in optimal development of my being, meaning my intellectual, spiritual, and physical development. And I have found the answers for that, first of all, in philosophy. So I studied philosophy, and I have a PhD in philosophy, because this was, for me, the best way to optimize my intellectual development. Now, when it comes to my physical development, I couldn't find any better choice than to inquire about bodybuilding. Now, although I didn't study formally, I studied on my own accord, and I did a lot of research from the very early age about anatomy, physiology, biomechanics, biochemistry, nutrition, and as a result of all my studies and research, I've put those findings and that knowledge into practice to prove it, and it worked very well for me. And in the meantime, I published 10 books on training, nutrition, lifestyle change, training for beginners, and similar. And also I spent over 40 years in bodybuilding. I competed 46 times. I won 17 titles. And I trained over 3,500 clients so far and helped them to get in the best shape of their lives. Now, what is important, and I always say that to a lot of people who send comments and ask questions on my YouTube channel, I'm always talking about optimized development of muscle size and fat loss. People are always trying to find some combinations or some comfort zones, or try to, make life easier in a way by asking, can I train 2 times per week, or maybe 3 times? Can I eat this, but can I add that? This is too much protein. And well, you said not much carbs. But again, I remind everybody, every time I talk about these subjects, I'm trying to give an answer that will help you to, again, optimize. So I'm giving the 100% answer, trying to help you understand that you should be doing the best that you can, always, across the board, in anything you do in life. So why would you do less than 100%? I mean, what is life all about? It's an opportunity for us to be the best that we can be.
Absolutely. So you mentioned there limiting carbohydrates. That's obviously something that I see a lot. There's a lot of big push now, eating hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of grams of carbs, 600, 800 grams of carbs a day. If you're trying to be a bodybuilder, they say you have to have carbs to put on muscle. And when I try to tell people about this, about ketogenic diets, they say, oh, well, but you can't build muscle without carbs. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, you see, my first reaction is a smile and laugh. Yeah. Because this is absolutely not true. I mean, if we go back into fundamentals of human physiology, we will understand that carbohydrates are macronutrient that has no nutritional value. There is nothing there. It's a pure energy. So we use carbohydrates only to store energy. We don't do anything else with them. Now, what is the most important for developing muscle size? It is actually protein. Protein comes from Greek word protos, proton in physics, meaning essential, number one, the most important. And this is why that macronutrient has got that name. So this is how we came to protein. Now, protein is so essential that there is not enough explanation and research to prove that. Not only for muscles, but for all other tissues, like bones, for example, all internal organs, heart, lungs, digestive system, kidney, liver, skin, hair, nails, everything that people are so interested in. And they're all these tissues, hormones, nerves, nervous system, everything is made of protein. So that macronutrient is so essential that should be really taken as the primary macronutrient. Now, if we remind ourselves, for example, from anthropological findings, that humans, Homo sapiens, that according to some experts has been around for some 400,000 years, most of that time humans simply didn't have access to carbohydrates. So we evolved around the natural environment, around the circumstances that we have been exposed. This is how we evolved our physical existence, our bodies, our anatomy. And carbohydrates are very, very limited throughout this huge span of evolution of Homo sapiens. Now, how did Homo sapiens evolve? Can anybody imagine that our ancestors didn't have enough glycogen? They had to have glycogen in their bodies for the purpose of surviving, fighting, hunting, running away. So how would you do that if you're not full of glycogen? But the glycogen comes from if there is no rice, pasta, cereals, and all this. So humans developed the ability to create glycogen from protein, from amino acids, and also ketones. This is through the process of called gluconeogenesis that liver actually executes in order to convert amino acids and ketones into glycogen. But the thing to understand is that via gluconeogenesis, you will always create as much as you need, not more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And your glycogen stores will never be 100% full, which they don't have to be for example, successful bodybuilding workout. Now, back to your question, 400, 500, 600 grams, Jay cut 1,000 grams of carbohydrates a day. I mean, this is simply insane. We don't have the ability to store that into the muscle tissue. Therefore, exogenic compounds like, for example, insulin are necessary in order to drive that huge amount of carbohydrates into the muscle. Nobody knows how much of those carbohydrates will end up in the muscle and how much will spill over into the fat cells. We can only guess, but I think that carbohydrates are the main culprit of all chronic diseases that we are exposed, not just now, but since the discovery of agriculture. I write it in my books as well. And chronic diseases, even cancers, they didn't exist before introduction of agriculture.
Yeah.
I went to British Museum a few times doing my research on my own. For example, studying the mummies there, and if you observe them properly, usually people come and say, "Oh, they won't look at this; they are a few thousand years old." But it doesn't matter how old they are. What matters is what they're talking to you. They're talking volume. Look into their jaws, for example. The jaws will never develop enough because they didn't have enough protein in their diet. Egyptian mummies, most of them have no teeth. The ones with the remaining teeth have only few, which are rotten. If you look at the skin folds around their bellies, it's huge. So they were all obese. This didn't come from eating eggs, fish, and meat. This came exclusively for eating overwhelmingly huge amount of grains. So this is an answer in general, but back to the question about bodybuilding, do you really need so much carbs? No, you don't, because you don't grow from carbs. You need protein to grow. Carbohydrates are there just to fuel your energy. But I always say to people, if you're eating them, you should be only eating the necessary minimum. Everything more than that is going to go into the fat stores, is going to cause hyperproduction of insulin, and is going to cause havoc on your metabolic level.
Yeah, you hear that phrase going around that you need a caloric surplus in order to gain muscle, but just with the word surplus means surplus to demand, there's more than you need, and so wouldn't that necessarily go into fat? And so if you're eating mass quantities of these things past your demand, wouldn't that necessarily go into fat that you would then have to burn later?
Absolutely. Another thing that I also tackle in my books on nutrition is that game of counting calories.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, calories lie. They are not. Calorie is not a calorie.
Yeah.
See, if I give you a diet yeah, if I give you a diet of 1,600 calories, which is made of 400 grams of carbs, and I give somebody else or you 3 months later the same caloric intake, but this time from 400 grams of protein, what do you think is going to happen? There are two different universes there. In first occasion, you're going to get fat with 1,600 calories because you're going to be producing so much insulin. There is no other way. Those carbs will just be taken into fat cells. If you are on 400 grams of protein, you will be converting energy from your fat stores. So you're going to be losing fat. And if you need glycogen as much as you need, the body will convert from protein into glycogen via gluconeogenesis. So this caloric intake, that never works. I mean, people are asking me about, they come with whole spreadsheet of meals and calories, and they're so immersed into that mathematical equations and calculating in their minds. I mean, all right, I don't want to go there scientifically, but let me just tell you a very simple example. Arnold, Sergio Oliva, Serge Nubre, Albert Beckles, Robbie Robinson, whoever was there, Frank Zane, they didn't count calories. They didn't even know what calories are. So how did they manage to build amazing, according to me, never surpassed bodies and physiques? How did they do that? Arnold never counted calories. He never did much about anything anyway, but he was following his instincts, and they were all on high protein, medium to low fat diet. Most of the year, they would eat some carbs occasionally, but once the things become serious before big shows, immediately they will switch to the best possible diet for muscle growth and fat loss, which is without any doubt high protein, medium fat, low carb.
Yeah. So is that, I mean, and I've spoken about this too, the golden era bodybuilders like Serge Nubret, Arnold, Vince Gironda, who's sort of even a bit before that. It was steak and eggs, steak and eggs, steak and eggs. Serge was like 6 pounds of horse meat a day. Arnold, in his video, the movie Pumping Iron, when he was talking about his meals, he's like, yeah, I'm not like these guys where I can just eat 4 pounds of meat at one time. I've got to have 10-ounce steak here, another one here, some eggs here. I've got to split it up through the day. But the only thing he mentioned was meat, and he didn't say anything about carbs.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And they were all big, they were huge.
Monsters.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, I was lucky to go and meet Serge Nubret myself. In two occasions, I ended up in Paris in 82 and 83. I believe I spent each time I spent 1 month in his gym, which is called Serge Nubret International Fitness Center in Belleville in Paris. And I mean, one only had to see Serge Nubret in front of him to understand the magnificent, not just huge, but body, which was out of this world. He was so big, he was so pumped, covered with veins. The skin was like almost non-existing. And that man stands in front of you, and that talks everything. So how did he do it? I just did a video, which is going to be out tomorrow morning at 10 UK time on his diet. And I didn't believe anything I read before. Because people were saying 6, 7, 8 pounds of meat a day. Some would push to 10. In reality, it was 6. He said it himself. But I just couldn't believe it because I was then completely deluded in Mike Mentzer theory of heavy-duty training 3, 4 times per week, some huge weights, eating 60, 70% of carbs, maybe 5, 6 times a day. I was 112 kgs, but a lump, right? It was not, I wasn't obese, but I was fat, full of water, strong, okay? And then when I went there, I was completely shocked to see that almost so many of them in the gym, they looked amazing. They were ripped, they were big, veins popping out all the time. And they were all on high protein, medium fat diet, like Serge Nubret. And I saw him eating as well. I never saw a man eating so much meat in one sitting. It was probably around 3 pounds of steak. And he just ate that and nothing else with it. So when I asked him, do you eat vegetables at all? He said, no, why would I eat vegetables? I'm not a rabbit. It was very funny. And I asked him about what about eggs? He said, eggs, they are fantastic. I said, how many do you eat? I said, I don't eat eggs. Why? He says, I don't like them.
Mhm.
What are you going to say? There is no answer to that, right? You're talking to a god.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I asked him the same about fish. And he says, yeah, it's great. You can eat fish, no problem. I said, how much do you eat? He said, no, I don't eat any. Why? I don't like it. So, and then interesting thing, I forgot to mention that in the video, but now just the thought, like an arrow, just flies in front of my
Mhm.
mind. I spoke to his wife as well. She was a beautiful woman. I think she was about 45, 46 when I was there. Jacqueline Noubre. She won many competitions, bodybuilding, female bodybuilding. But in those days, women were simply beautiful. They were very feminine and lean, and the bodies were fantastic.
Mhm.
And she was very lean, very stunning, beautiful woman. So I talked to her about diet, and I said, "What about fruit? Do you eat fruit?" She said, "Yeah." She said, "I have an apple per week." I said, "Sorry, a day?" No, she said, "Maybe once a week." So this yet another one. How women stay in shape, and from my experience, I trained so many of them. Women and carbs simply don't go together.
Mhm.
And the moment they cut the carbs out of the diet and switch to high protein, medium fat diet, women change dramatically. Not in months, in weeks.
Mhm.
So yeah, this is true. Golden era bodybuilders all follow more or less the same diet, which was meat and eggs. That was introduced by Vince Gironda. Vince wasn't scientific in the modern understanding of science, but experiments that he did were extremely scientific because
Mhm.
they had to bring results.
Mhm.
And he advised his people, his ultra cut diet, known as such, was 3 meals a day, and every meal was the same. Any type of meat and eggs. When they ask him how much, as much as you want. But no buts. You will only eat as much as you can. When I say that to people, say, "Oh, Nash, but this is a lot. I can eat." I said, "No, you're not going to eat a lot. Try to have
Yeah.
2 pounds steak and 3, 4 eggs on the top. Let me know when you finish that."
Mhm.
And then they called me and said, "I couldn't finish it."
Mhm.
So I said, eat 3 times like that, and you will see your body will tell you how much you need to eat. And now this is another chapter in the universe that is all about nutrition. That I think the very wrong thing that we have all succumbed to in the modern times is to calculate food, not to feel the food. We should eat when we are hungry. This is natural chain of events. You need ghrelin, you need hormone to tell you that you're ready to eat, that your digestive system is ready to absorb. People are just stuffing themselves all the time. This is how they develop visceral fat, for example, which is then detrimental for metabolic health. But if you eat when you are hungry, you won't eat 6, 7 times a day. Stick to eggs and meat, and you're going to end up eating maybe twice, maybe once, maybe 3 times, depending. But allow your body to be ready to absorb. Don't force it. And we have lost that instinct. I say to people, you need to develop the hunger for protein
Mhm.
after a heavy, let's say, back workout, chest workout. What are you hungry for? Can you get to that answer? Don't think about it. Phil, do you want to eat pizza or you want to eat a steak? So once we awake those feelings and instincts within us, I think things are completely different and very, very beneficial for us.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting that you coach that and that the golden era guys did that intuitive eating because that's exactly what I found for my medical patients that this and I've also made the same suggestion to athletes that I've worked with. Same thing that you just eat intuitively. Your body's going to tell you. You have these signals that your body understands how much nutrients you need. Every animal in the wild instinctively knows how much to eat and when to stop. We've actually discovered more recently that we have receptors in our stomach that actually track up the vagus nerve to the brain and calculate the macros and micros that are in your stomach. And so in real time, your brain can tell what nutrients are in there long before you ever absorb it in your small intestine. And so just by that alone, your brain will sort of down regulate the taste response, and then all of a sudden it just stops tasting good. And you get to a point where like, ugh, I can't do this anymore. And I've had patients try to push that and say like, oh, I can't do this meat diet because it takes me 2 hours to finish a meal. I have to force myself. And I ask them, well, does it taste good at first? And they invariably say yes, that it tastes amazing, but they get halfway through the meal and it's really hard and it takes them another 2 hours. And I just point out that they were finished 2 hours ago because their body was telling them under no uncertain circumstances that they needed to stop eating. So that's very interesting that they were doing the same thing, which is just eating intuitively. That's really interesting.
Yeah, but this is only going to happen if you eat staple foods, if you eat
That's it.
protein and fat.
Yeah.
If you eat carbohydrates, that will never happen. So,
Yeah.
what is the proof? Everybody has proven that in their lives,
Mm-hmm.
guaranteed. Everybody who is watching, how much ice cream can you eat while watching a movie on Netflix?
Mm-hmm.
A limited amount. You can eat a big tub, 1 kg ice cream. You can't stop. What about
Mm-hmm.
popcorn? What about all these biscuits and stuff? Why don't we stop? Because we don't have developed those regulators, those sensors that will tell you it's enough.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect the reason why we overeat all this junk food and carbohydrates is that the body is constantly looking for protein. And
Mm-hmm.
if it doesn't find the protein in those junk products, the body will allow you to stuff yourself more because simply is waiting for the protein. If there is a little protein, the body will wait for more. And this is why there is nothing to stop you. I always say to people, I give you 10 boiled eggs and I'm going to sit in front of you and wait. Let's see how many you're going to eat. They're looking at me like, oh, let's try 4. On the 5th, most of them collapse. They can't eat the 5th one.
Yeah.
So what about 10? 10 eggs are 60 grams of protein. It's not a problem, but
Mm-hmm.
it's very hard for anybody to eat that.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because eggs are full of everything that you need for developing life. The only environment in which every single life on planet happens is actually an egg, even human life. So what is in the egg that we eat? Chicken eggs, for example. We
Mm-hmm.
have 6 grams of protein, 6 grams of fat. Where are carbohydrates there? They're not necessary. They're not essential. They don't exist. There is no such a thing as essential carbohydrates. We have essential amino acids, essential fatty acids. But what happened to carbohydrates and all these 500-600 grams per day when they're not essential? Why would you do this? You see, from wherever you come to this problem, you will always come to the same result. You have a non-essential macronutrient, which is literally energy full food, and nothing more than that. There is nothing essential in them. This is why if you eat them, if you need them, you should really be on the necessary minimum. And I have found that for bodybuilders, that is never more than 100 to 150 grams per day, not even every day. These are bodybuilders who have great metabolism, who train almost every day. But for majority of people, including myself, I rarely eat carbohydrates. If I eat them, I eat them once per week. Maybe when I'm training legs, I would have maybe 70 grams before workout and maybe another 50 grams after, even if I do that, because there are many weeks when I just don't eat carbs at all. And I don't feel that I need them. If I feel, I will have them. But they're so random that I can really say that my diet is mainly protein and fat.
I'm very good. Yeah, I've actually come to very similar conclusions about why we overeat with carbohydrates and that junk food. Certainly, our bodies are looking at this, whatever's in our stomach, and saying, "Hey, there's no food here. There's no actual nutrients here." So it's giving you those hunger signals still, and that's why things like protein and fat are so satiating because that's what your body is looking for. Your body doesn't track calories; it tracks nutrients, and it wants those
Exactly.
nutrients. And so it's not saying, "Well, wait, we're up to 1,600 calories. Better slow down." It's saying, "Hey, we've only had 20 grams of protein today. We've only had 20 grams of fat, and we've had no vitamins and minerals. Like, get on the page." Also, there's hormonal changes that carbohydrates will raise insulin. Insulin blocks lipolysis, so now you can't generate more energy, and your blood sugar will start dropping to a point that you feel lethargic. You can't make ketones, and you feel pretty crummy, and you go and chase those carbs again. It also blocks leptin, which is a satiety hormone, which now will not be able to reach your brain, and your brain thinks that you're emaciated and we're starving and our blood sugar is dropping. So it panics and said, hey, we need to eat, we need to eat, we need to eat. There's also very clever food scientists that work very hard to find compounds and chemicals that mimic some of these natural flavors that are, and that's what it literally says, natural flavorings that mimic those flavors that our brain says, yes, we want those. Those are nutrients we want, but they don't actually exist in that food. And then it goes down to your stomach. Your brain says, yes, we want that nutrient. It goes into your stomach and there's nothing there. There's no nutrient there. And so now your brain's saying, no, no, more of that, more of that. And they become this highly palatable, addictive substance that you overeat by design so that they can sell more product. And I've even seen them on 60 Minutes. The food scientists actually say that's what they're trying to do. Saying here's this big flavor and then it goes away quickly so that you want the next chip and the next bite and the next piece. So that you get this sort of compulsive relationship with eating that food. And so they've tacked on, it's called an evolutionary trap where you have this response that says, yes, do that, but it's something that's not the original, the original pathway, and it's now something harmful to us, like this junk food that has been in, basically they've sort of taken over those pathways to co-opt our hunger signals so that we just keep eating and keep eating. So I think that, I think that's done intentionally, unfortunately, just to sell more of these products, I think.
Yeah, without any doubt. But even carbohydrates themselves, they will create a vicious insulin cycle that probably hook you up. You can't get out of it. I have people who are, especially bodybuilders, they say, oh, Nash, if I don't eat in 2 hours, I start shaking. Of course you're going to start shaking because you eat carbs in every meal. So welcome to the vicious insulin cycle. So your insulin is always up, your glucagon is always down. So you're storing, but you're never burning. And here we go. You have to eat every 2 hours. You're like in prison. The food becomes punishment for you. It's not. I don't even think about food. If I eat at 10, my next meal will be like 4 or 5 or something like that. When I feel hungry, I say, "Oh, really? I need to eat now." But I'm very active. I train almost every day, and I do a lot of work throughout the day. And I mean, I don't want to. I want to be slave of food. I don't live to eat. I eat to live. And this is the principle that has been turned upside down. People should be eating in order to sustain life. They shouldn't eat or live in order to eat. But now food is the biggest commodity. If you look across the cultures, across the regions in the world, it's always food. When they invite you food on the table, first of all, food, drink, food, drink. So, food is just necessity. Don't make the eudaimonia, as Aristotle would say, the final happiness in food. No, it's not. It's just one of the things that you need, but there are much more important things like your health, your look, your strength, your shape, etc.
Yeah, it's I was gonna ask you as well. You mentioned how you might eat before or after, specifically with carbs. But is there a specific time? Say you're trying to maximize your physique. You've just done a heavy workout. There's the idea of this anabolic window that if you eat directly after your workout, that's somehow more beneficial than if you ate at another time. Is there any validity to that, or is there any specific timing on how you would eat or how someone would eat?
Well, there is something known as folk psychology. What the masses think, they psych themselves up, and most of the people accept that as a healthy way of thinking. Right? This is called folk psychology. This is about putting your carbs before and after. I mean, I don't really buy that because sorry, from the experiments that I've done and with my clients as well. I have a guy now who is competing this in these few weeks. He already did a show, and interesting enough, the highest volume and intensity workouts are usually done last 2 weeks before the show when I put him on zero carbs. So he was eating just protein and fat, eggs, chicken, meat. That was the only food. And you should see how the intensity and volume increases immediately. So where are the carbs? Pre-workout, after workout? And I trained him yesterday, and he's like, He's about 105 kgs, covered in veins, no fat at all, shredded everywhere. And I said to him, so what about the holy carbs? You really need them for energy. How come you're doing 30 sets today for back? Where that comes from? And he's looking at me. Obviously, now we're thinking outside the box. It's not very comfortable zone there for anybody, but and there is no answer, only the smile on his face. Look in the mirror. Look, it's you over there. Believe it or not, look how you look. So this is the answer to a question. It's arbitrary. Yes, you can eat them before your workouts. That may help you a little bit, probably psychologically more than anything else. Because if you eat, as I occasionally have, rarely actually, but if you eat 70, 50 grams of carbs before your workout, it will take hours for that to go into the glycogen store. It's not going to go immediately. So the glycogen that you're going to use for your legs or back or whatever has been stored previous day, previous night, from whatever sources they were out there. Most likely gluconeogenesis if you are on a low-carb diet, but not glycogen before workout, because it takes hours for that food to get digested first, and then transported to the digestive system, and then absorbed, and then transferred into glycogen. So this is not physiologically, this is why people train fantastically on empty stomach first thing in the morning. I had about 10, 15 questions to that subject yesterday in the comments on my channel, and people are saying, I don't have time train in the afternoon, you're advising that, but I can only train in the morning. Amazing. Training, what's the problem? Your glycogen is there. Maybe your mind is not there, or your belief system is not there, but your glycogen is there. And then they do it, and it says, that was fantastic. I never thought I can do it. So you see how important is that mind power. After workout, yes, there is the window of opportunity. It was storing more glycogen than usual. It was thought that it's around an hour before. Then they moved it to 2 hours. Now, again, they found out that actually that will happen anytime later in the day, maybe after 5, 6 hours. So it's very arbitrary. You see, everybody is always looking for this absolute answers, which are of surgical precision. So tell me what to do, how many grams, milligrams, number of sets, weight, this, that, and I'm going to be putting that in my software and perform as you said. It just doesn't work like that. You're not a robot, you're not a software. You're an animated being, animated. You know what that means? We are different. We have different universe within, and we look at the universe differently as well. We are a reflection of our insides, of our drives. So it's very important to understand that. Yes, listen to advice, try to pick up the principles, but you are the owner of your life. So you will have to decide about everything at the end of the day. So I never pretend to give final, fundamental, absolute, universal answers that will cover everyone. Unfortunately, a lot of great bodybuilders tend to do that. I've done it like that. This is how it has to be. No, it doesn't have to be like that. You've done it. It's good for you. I'm listening to you. I may try, but I'm not buying it because I'm not you. People are saying to me, commenting on my workout philosophy and all that, oh, but Dorian Yates did it differently. But do you think you're Dorian Yates? If you think you are, just copy and paste. And you will maybe do the same. You will be amazing. You're going to be Mr. Olympia, but you're not. So people are different. You know, somebody like him had to train in the dungeon in Birmingham on his own with a hoodie in the environment which was no air conditioning, no lights, no toilets, nothing. He needed that in order to express himself to the world. Others train in the most fantastic gyms in LA, New York, or wherever. So it's very important to understand that even that thing with glycogen storage before and after workout is quite arbitrary. You don't even have to do it. Your body will store glycogen. What do you think tomorrow? You're going to wake up after leg workout and you won't be able to walk? No, you will be able to walk because the body will make glycogen from protein. So people should relax about it. Another thing about post-workout meal, you know that one of the highest spikes of growth hormone is actually immediately after the workout.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
you want that growth hormone, hormone of youth, very powerful anabolic hormone, most powerful fat burning hormone. So you produce that after the workout immediately, and it's
Mhm.
going to peak within 30, 40 minutes. So what is going to happen if you eat immediately some carbs? You're going to kill that hormone because insulin is going to overpower growth hormone, and you're wasting the amazing opportunity to build muscle and burn fat thanks to growth hormone after your workout. And you see people finish and immediately open some box with some cereals or some chocolate pops or whatever they're called. I don't know. And they're
Mhm.
stuff, I need sugar after training. I mean, literally the most important hormone that you just produced, you're wasting it now because
Mhm.
insulin will overpower it and is more active and more powerful when it comes to receptors on the cells. And growth hormone will just go away. This is why we produce growth hormone naturally 2-3 hours after we get asleep, because this is the time when insulin is very low in the body. This is when growth hormone finds its way to the receptors. But again, comfort is very
Mhm.
pleasurable thing. So
Yeah. Yeah, I've tried to point that out to people before that, as a bodybuilder, I mean, it didn't make sense to me that you would have all these carbs because of that effect of insulin on that negative effect of insulin on growth hormone. And if people don't know, insulin blocks the production and the action of growth hormone. So it's going to suppress your natural production doing these big workouts. You're going to produce quite a lot of growth hormone if you do it right, when you're sleeping as well. And you're going to suppress that if you're eating a whole bunch of carbs in and around exercise and your training. But then some of these people, obviously training for Mr. Olympia, these professional bodybuilders, they're likely even injecting growth hormone. And then they're eating 400, 500 calories and carbs a day, and their insulin is just going to be through. Some people are injecting insulin on top of that,
yes, yes,
and what is that going to do? I mean, it's basically throwing money away, is what it's doing. They're having to use more and more and more growth hormone to get a similar result, but it's basically just a waste of money. And some people have really pushed back against that. Well, if that was really a problem, then obviously they wouldn't do it. So it's good to hear that from the horse's mouth.
yes, yes. I mean, again, I think it's absolutely unnecessary. What is very different between golden era bodybuilding and now is that, I mean, I know for myself, uh, my first show was in 85. I was already training 6, 7 years,
Mhm.
and it took me time to grow and then time to, get some decent shape and then get in shape. Not just me, many other people. If you see Ronnie Coleman, for example, his evolution of Ronnie Coleman, as we know, Mr. Olympia, was
Mhm.
so many years when he finished even 14, 15, 12, 9, and it took so many attempts to develop. Nowadays, people start training and in 2, 3 years, they're winning shows. So they don't have that natural progression in development, physical development, not just physical, mental. And imagine all the other systems in the body, how they adapt to all this immense development of muscle tissue and all that, which is absolutely unhealthy. This is why, unfortunately, a lot of them have died because
Mhm.
of that sudden development and increase in body mass. Body mass, I mean, heart is not going to like any super heavy body mass, regardless is it fat or protein or both. It's too much.
Mhm.
I mean, I know people who Nasser was my friend, Nasser El Sumbati, one of the most famous bodybuilders. We competed together, and he would go up to 140 kgs in the off season plus, and he
Mhm.
died from heart attack. Not because
Yeah.
he was taking steroids, but because he was too heavy. This is too much
Mhm.
for the heart. There are other people who are taking steroids, but they're not having any issues. But one has to be smart. And obviously, that time, you need time to grow. It has to happen in stages. So if you do that in 2, 3 years by abusing all these chemicals and growth hormone and insulin, it's a very, very dangerous path to walk. So I would never advise that. Never.
Mhm.
I mean, my son is 25. He's natural. He's 97 kgs. He
Mhm.
looks amazing, but he wasn't 97 kgs in 6 months. He started from 70 kgs when he was playing football. He was age of 16, 17. And then
Mhm.
every year he will build. And now doing exactly what we are talking about, mainly protein and fat. Sometimes he would eat carbs just for fun or just to break the boredom of the diet. And I always ask him to follow his instincts when it comes to diet, when it comes to training. People are saying to me, oh, but you are talking only about steroid users who can do 30 sets, 25 sets. This is impossible for a natural. So I'm
Mhm.
going to be doing with my son Milos videos in which he will explain to people how he does 30 sets for back in his workout. What
Mhm.
is that? It's not impossible.
Mhm.
It's possible and it's natural. You probably do the same, or many
Yeah.
other people. But people, when they hear that, oh, they want to do it tomorrow, 30 sets.
Mhm.
Take a little bit, take the principle. If you're doing
Mhm.
7, 8 sets now, bring it up to 12, then to 15. It might take some time, maybe months. Nobody said you have to do 30 tomorrow. Somebody said, oh, if I do that, I'm going to do bench press with an empty bar. well,
Yeah.
well, take your time. Patience is a virtue. So, yeah, there is no easy way. There is no magical formula. And I never said it's going to be easy. I said it's going to be beautiful,
Mhm.
but it's going to be hard because, as you know, and everybody else knows, whatever you have accomplished in your life with extremely hard work, you cherish the most. Everything that comes easy is not really valued. So people
Yeah.
should be happy to work hard. Yes, it's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I certainly did find that I could do quite a lot of these sets, and and I felt great. I felt that I was getting fantastic results. I didn't do the Mike Menzer thing where I just work out once and every 14 weeks, and then and then come back at it again, next blue moon. But I did very high volume. I felt that I could. I had the recovery when I changed to just doing a carnivore diet. I wasn't getting sore. I felt amazing. I was even doing when we go into the training side of things, we can talk about it. But I was doing stupid amounts where I was doing 20 sets of bench, 20 sets of dips, 20 sets of flies. So I might do 40 to 60 sets for chest and 20 for shoulder press and squats and deadlift and things. And I do that every other day. I had a sort of workout routine. I had a 2 day split, and I just every other day. And I said, like, I feel like I can do this. Let's just see what happens. That's just Sunday was my rest day, and I did 3 repeats. So I did that 3 days a week. And so let's call it 40 sets for chest and legs, alternate days, but I do that 3 times. So I was doing like 120 sets a week, which is just stupid amount. And I just wanted to see what happened. But after, I don't know, 4 or 5 months of that, I was feeling great, had really good results in my physique. Absolutely just transformed my physique from where it was before, certainly with the training, but that was at the same time that I switched back to the carnivore diet. And then I got to a point where I was feeling great and let's hop down on the bench. I was like, okay, here we go. And like, oh, geez, whoa, what the hell was that? And I'd obviously done something to my chest. I had tendonitis. I hadn't torn something major or anything like that, but it was just very painful. And it didn't hurt when I was just doing normal things. But as soon as I started doing bench, it was very painful. And I had to sort of work through that injury over the next couple of weeks, but it recovered pretty quickly. But then it sort of dawned on me like, okay, there is a limit. I do need to recover. So like 3 days a week is stupid. And so I cut back to twice a week, but it was still, 40 sets twice a week, which was pretty crazy. But that was no TRT, that was no steroids. I've never done anything like that. Always been natural, but same thing. I mean, I had that progression. I mean, I remember the weights that I wrestled at as a teenager. When I was in seventh grade, when I was 12 years old, I wrestled at 110. And then I was 145. And then it was, 155, 165. And then when I was in high school, I was 177 sophomore year. And then I 190 junior year, and then 215 senior year. And I was actually a light 215. And I sort of hovered in the sort of the 190s for a while until I went into college and really started focusing on weight training because before that I was doing MMA, I was doing rugby, I was doing wrestling, but I really hadn't hit the gym very consistently yet. And then it was after that when I was 19, 20 that I really started hitting the gym 4 or 5 days a week and just consistently and just hitting it. Always high protein sort of diet. Always ate a lot of meat, and then I was able to start getting up into the 220s, and I was able to hit 230, and that was sort of where I was stable at. I couldn't really get more than that. And then I went carnivore, and then everything changed athletically. And I just from a rugby perspective, I just became just a different level of player. And I was already an All-American. I was already playing at a very high level. But this just shot it to the next level. And that was the time when and that was the thing too, because I underate a lot because I didn't realize that my hunger signals were so different. And so I didn't realize how much I needed to eat. And so there's days that I was like, well, I just didn't really feel hungry because my hunger signals changed so dramatically. There might be multiple days in a row that I didn't eat. And so I was really under eating. And then, so I'd actually lose a lot of weight, and I actually would drop down to like 190 pounds and I'd be way too skinny. And then I finally realized that I just wasn't eating enough. And I said, okay, no matter what, even if I don't feel hungry as I normally do, I'm just going to eat every day. And every day, meat and eggs tasted great. And so that was no problem. But I didn't feel hungry in the traditional way, which is why I always coach people to say, hey, your hunger signals are going to change, and so you need to relearn those and go by taste. If it tastes good, just listen to that, keep going. And then I started putting on weight, and I would get up to about 245, and that was sort of where my body was happiest. As a professional athlete, it was about 245 and quite lean too. We get like 6% body fat. I had veins on my abs and things like that. And I would feel great. My performance was great. Now at 45, I'm I'm 105 kilos, so that's about 230, something like that. So, but if I'm in the gym and I'm working out consistently, I will get back up to that 240, 245, 110 kilos, 112, something like that. And that's sort of where my body likes to be. If I'm really working out very hard, pushing myself, but I also have to eat a lot. If I'm not able to get all the food, then I can't maintain that as well. But that's the same thing. I mean, that's a progression over a long time. I've had people say, "Oh, you must be doing steroids." It's like I haven't actually put on weight in 20 years, so it's like been the same size. I've just been able to maintain that, and it took 12 years of very hard work to get there. And then many years of consistent training in the gym and lifting and things like that. 'Cause my legs were like tree trunks just because of the amount of sprinting and running that I did. But my upper body was much more slender. And then when I started really getting into the gym and pushing that, then I started growing into my frame and because I've been 6'3" since I was 16, 17 years old. And so I was just very skinny. And so it took a while, but then it filled out, and I've just sort of maintained that. And so it's something you can absolutely do with consistency and proper diet, of course.
Absolutely, yes. I probably in the last, I don't know, 20 years, my shape never changed.
Mm,
I'm always trying to have my six pack out. My legs are ripped.
mhm.
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
So I just make sure that I eat always the same,
Mhm.
this 3 meals per day. And you were on carnivore. I don't know what kind of, probably some moderate carnivore, because I don't eat just meat. I also eat eggs. I like to
Yeah,
put
that's
some
fine.
cottage cheese in my eggs as well,
Mhm.
because I don't have problem with cottage cheese at all.
Mhm.
Then next meal will probably be chicken again, maybe put some cheese or eggs again. And the last one, usually during the day, last one of the day would be some red meat, beef, whatever it is. And this is what I eat in the
Yeah.
last 20 years all the time. I never change it. If I travel, I eat the same. If I go on holiday, I still eat the same.
Mhm.
It's always the same. Sometimes, if I'm in a hurry, I may eat eggs twice a day, just, throw another 5, 6 eggs instead of having chicken or something.
Mhm.
And basically, these are the nutrients. But when you look at everything together, it always comes to the same thing, which is high protein, medium fat, and carbs. Occasionally, I may have a salad. I don't have to. It's just a matter of taste. But my staple food is always those 3 meals.
Mhm.
Sometimes I would have a protein shake after my workout, but I need to really feel hungry. I
Mhm.
wait always 1 hour after workout. And if I have to stay in the gym for longer, have consultations or anything, then if I'm really hungry, I would have a shake, always in water, whey protein. So this is my type of diet. I don't like to be drastic in anything. I'm not a natural fundamentalist. I learned that from other areas of life. So I do stick to my principles, though. But I'm always open for new discoveries, new experiments. I like meeting new people because our intellectual and spiritual side is unlimited. There is no limited amount of languages that you can speak. There is no limited amount of books that you can read. So basically, one has to be very careful not to buy that stigma of surgical precision of science now. It has to be this way because it does not have to be anyway. So the only way is the right way. And I speak to people often. People are saying, "But this weights are light, heavyweight, lightweight." I said, "There is no such a thing as lightweight and heavy. What is lightweight? What is heavyweight? Can you give me the?" No, this is all arbitrary. The only weight that is called right weight. So this is the way that will allow you to perform X amount of sets and X amount of reps in order to hit what I believe is the necessary volume and intensity to grow muscle. So nothing is written in stone. I didn't get this from God or from Moses or anything like that. That's my experience. That's what I know. I tried it on so many people. Worked fantastically. Maybe it will work for you, most likely. So when it comes to diets as well, I suggest people what to eat, and then always ask them to try and use my advice as a guidance. But the final diet, the final choice of food is obviously down to them, because not everybody can react to food the same as everybody else.
Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys. Well, I mean, I would definitely say that's carnivore. So I definitely put you in the carnivore camp for the last 20 years. Maybe dirt carnivore because you throw in a salad every now and then, but that's it. I mean, that's what I've been doing as well for the last decade. And for 5 years in my early 20s, it's just meat and eggs really. And I'd have a bit of cheese as a condiment. So you melt some cheese onto an omelet maybe, or a slice of cheese on a ground beef patty or something like that. And that's pretty much it. And then just eating meat. I don't have a problem with dairy. Some people do. A lot of people with autoimmune issues tend to have problems with dairy more than others. And so and so if you do, great, cut that out and just eat just beef and lamb.
What you just mentioned, I have in the oven now because I cooked it this morning.
Oh yeah, nice.
Beef patties with cheese on the top. Yeah, see?
Perfect. Yeah.
So when I say salads, I just do them because sometimes I like that, I put balsamic vinegar and olive oil, and I just like the taste of it. So it makes me, instead of having an ice cream, I would have that. But I don't have to have it. But what I have to have it is always eggs, meat, chicken, stuff like that, fish as well.
Yeah.
So that's absolute must. There's nothing else out there.
Yeah, very good. So I was going to say too, this is, well, I was actually going to, I don't know if you know this, but I'll ask anyway. Obviously, Serge and Granda and things like that, they were just saying, meat and eggs. Do you know where they got that from? Like what was it just trial and error that found that this seems to be work that help people get the best physique, or did that come from something else? Do you know?
Yeah, but definitely didn't come from scientific research because that research didn't exist then.
Yeah.
Nobody cared about, carnivore diet of building muscles in the 60s and 70s. But people knew historically, instinctively, they knew that eating meat, eating fish, eating eggs is the best that you can do. I mean, if you look historically through development of all the nations and the class system, the higher classes in the society were always, their diet was mainly meat and eggs and fish, while the rest of the people had grains. And most of diseases and most of malnutrition and problems were usually happening in the majority of other people who were socially deprived. But the classes always had that in front of them. It's not a secret. It will give you immunity, it will give you strength, longevity, vitality, everything you want. So I think Vince Gironda was the first one to introduce that idea because he tried trial and error. This diet worked very well, especially for these Hollywood stars that he trained. A lot of them came to him. He put them in shape, just putting them on 3 meals a day because, eating meat and eggs 3 times a day is very difficult. You are not going to eat a lot. And your caloric intake, if you want to put calories back in the game, will be much lower. So not only that you are going to start stimulating glucagon, the major hormone for fat burn, and also suppressing insulin, which is the main fat storage driver. But also you will eat less food in general. People were just getting in shape. Now, when it came to bodybuilders, they were eating more than ordinary, than actors and actresses from Hollywood, and they had amazing results. One of the probably best conditioned athletes was Mohammed Mokabi, who finished, I think, a couple of times, or maybe a few times, finished in top 3 on Olympia, and he was coached by Vince Gironda. Mokabi was absolutely shredded, in fantastic shape. And there were also others. Arnold went to Vince Gironda when he came from Austria, Germany, to America. He went to see Joe Weider, and Joe Weider he started showing him arms and back and everything, chest. And Joe Weider said to him, yeah, you're good, but you need to see Vince. Who is Vince? Just go and see him. And then Arnold went there, and Vince introduced him to the diet that made him actually start getting in better shape, because Arnold lost few shows. He lost show from Sergio Oliva, he lost from Frank Zane, simply because he wasn't in great shape. And then once he got into the shape, he developed his own instincts. He was very instinctive. Arnold never impressed me with the amount of knowledge that he had, but he impressed me very much with the fact how instinctive he was. He didn't know many, many things that we know today. He was doing things, training and eating, following his instincts. Now, the people around him didn't understand what I mentioned earlier on, that what Arnold did was good for Arnold. So they all tried to copy Arnold, and not many of them succeeded. They couldn't do it. Ed Corney was training with him, Franco Colombo, many others. They just couldn't follow. They were dropping dead around him. Instead of doing what they should do, what they can do, now they try to copy Arnold. So Arnold became already like a legend. If you don't train like Arnold, then, you don't know what you're doing. But this is wrong. That was fantastic for Arnold. We can learn a lot from Arnold, a lot of things he did right. Most of it is obviously very basic selection of exercises, a lot of sets, a lot of reps, and obviously diet, which was predominantly high in protein and medium fat. So they arrived to that diet by trial and error. But trial and error should also be considered a scientific experiment.
Yeah.
Because if you put something in perspective and you want to achieve certain thing, maybe compete on bodybuilding show, and what it is an experiment, and it's scientific experiment. Why? Because you don't have a control group next to you. Is that this qualifies from scientific experiment? You have experimental and control group on the other side. So what if you don't have control group? Who cares about control group? I'm going to try with 300 grams of protein and 300 grams of carbs. Let's see what happens in 6 weeks. Oh, I'm not losing fat. So what am I going to do? Let's up protein to 400, cut carbs down to 100. Oh, I'm getting in shape. It's an experiment. And it is more than scientific. It's a life experiment. So it's not performed in the lab. It's performed in the real life, in your life. So this is why I try to draw people back to, experiment, try. Don't just follow blindly what it says there. You're not receiving antibiotics from a doctor or something, so you have to follow the rules. This is different. This is very, very different. So yes, instinct and trial and error. This is what took them to diet of high protein, medium fat.
Very good. That sort of reminds me of something else, which was, I don't know if you saw the Game Changers documentary where they talk about how everyone should go vegan and we should cut out all meat and everything like that, and how these athletes are improving their game by doing this. And there's a vegan bodybuilder or vegetarian. He basically built his body on eggs and protein shakes and things like that. And then recently, then for the film, they said he went vegan and now he's feeling better as well, and other people as well. There's a lot of flaws with that video. Obviously, there were about 6 athletes that tried to be in part of that, and after about 6 months, were like, "This is awful. This is ruining my health and my performance." So they cut out. And then a lot of the people that were in that then subsequently dropped off of it afterwards, and were like, "This was a huge mistake." But one of the things that really sort of irked me was, Arnold Schwarzenegger was in that, and having built his entire physique and his entire empire on meat and eggs, he then says that, well, if he had been vegan or plant-based or whatever during his Olympia runs, he would have been even better. And who the fuck are you to tell me what to eat? And I was like, well, I'm a doctor and I actually know what I'm talking about, Arnold. And so that was something interesting that I saw. And obviously, he's friends with James Cameron, and James Cameron owns $140 million worth of a pea protein company. And so this basically was just a big ad for plant-based proteins. But it sort of was very, very strange to me that someone who is such a pillar of the bodybuilding community and even did something like the blueprint sort of approach where it's like, hey, follow me. This was my blueprint. This is how I succeeded. Do the same thing. And his diet then was basically meat and eggs. And now he's sort of making that whole shift. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, earlier on I mentioned to you that I was never impressed with his knowledge, right?
Yeah.
All right. So that's half of an answer. I was always impressed with his instinctive approach, his work ethics, his determination, persistence. These character traits were very, very positive, and they are something that actually I always cherished, and I'm like that as well. But there is also another thing that people who knew Arnold spoke about loudly, and they said if he can get the right price for his mother, he would sell her. Right? So this is probably the second half of the answer.
Okay.
So why would Arnold say that nonsense about vegan diet? Now, when it comes to vegetarians, I have few clients who are vegetarians, but these guys are eating eggs, tons of eggs. They're eating cheese and cottage cheese, and they're also taking protein shakes. And they are doing fantastic. They don't eat any meat, any fish, any chicken. And I don't try to persuade them to eat that because, if you are religious or this is your ethical belief, there is nothing to talk about. If you want to talk about rational exchange of facts, yes, we can talk about, but I'm not going to change your religious view, your philosophical views. They are basically your choice and you have to follow it. If I can help, I will help. So being vegetarian doesn't mean that you're going to be reducing your essential amino acids and essential proteins, like from eggs, cheese, kefir, for example, and protein shakes. So they do well. Now, when it comes to vegans, the story is not very bright. There is nothing very good about that. First of all, our physiology talks and our anatomy. You see, you have esophagus coming down from the top of your neck and goes down directly into the sac full of acid and pepsin, hydrochloric acid and pepsin. So why is that acid there waiting? There's a few liters of it. What is the waiting for? What gets digested in acid? Why don't we have something different in our stomach? Acid is there to digest protein. So your body is talking to you. Human body is telling us what the first most important thing that should enter stomach is, and this is something that has to be digested in particular acidic environment. This is protein. End of story. So if you eat your grains and your rice and your corn and whatever, good luck to you. But this is not who you are. Maybe this is something that you want to be, but you are not. So I wish them all the best. But I gave a few lectures in the communities of vegans and also vegetarians. And I remember one in Hampstead. This is very upmarket area in London. When they invited me, they were all vegans and vegetarians. So when I came there, I said to them, guys, we have two options tonight. One option is I will tell you what you want to hear, and you will all go home happy. And another option is I will tell you how it is. And now you tell me what you want to hear from me. And they all stood up, they were clapping and said, we want to hear how it is. So I told them everything I knew about nutrition. And at the end of my lecture, which was about a couple of hours, I had to stay for another 2 hours in the hall talking to most of them because there were a few hundred people there. And half of them decided to start eating eggs and fish and chicken, etc., etc. So, we have reason, we have mind. We use that in order to help ourselves exist better and exist longer. So this is how I see it. And I don't believe Arnold II that he said that he is a vegan and that he will do much better if he was a vegan. So it just makes me laugh.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Well, that's great. Thank you so much for that. I was just going to say, you told us what you're eating. I'm presuming that's sort of similar to what you're telling your clients to eat. What sort of would you put them on? Is it the same sort of approach, 3 meals a day, meat and eggs, that sort of thing?
My general approach is, especially for people over 35, 40, because this is when male population start getting fat easily. And the reason for that is obviously slow insulin resistance, developing an insulin resistance, or if I may say, lowering the insulin sensitivity. So once over that age, 35, 40, one should be very careful about that insulin sensitivity. Now, the best way to increase insulin sensitivity is, when it comes to diet, to downsize on carbohydrates and increase protein. And when it comes to training, to develop muscles, because developing the muscle cells, they grow, they stretch, and receptors get more open and more sensitive to insulin. So this combination of weight training and low carbohydrate diet, high protein, medium fat, is the master key, is the golden answer to health, longevity, and muscle growth. There are people that I still allow to stay on carbohydrates, not much, because most of their lives they were on X amount of carbohydrates, and the ones who are performing well and who are lean obviously can manage them. So I don't reduce much, but for overwhelming majority, it's always the same story, and this is carbs down, protein and fat up. And when that happens, changes arrive within weeks. There are people that you can see on my website, before and after, for example, and you can see the dramatic changes. They're not changes, they're dramatic life changes. From obese to shredded, lost like 60, 70 pounds of fat, and on the stage. So this is how we did it. Carbohydrates down, protein and fat up. And then obviously energy comes up, because when you start relying on your body fat, fat oxidation, your energy sources are unlimited. This is why you could have done so much, wrong or right, doesn't matter now. We'll talk about it in the next video. But your energy stores are unlimited. So if you rely on carbohydrates, you will always need extra carbs. Now you see bodybuilders now having energy drink before training. Then they're calling something, what they're calling intro training again, something sugar, and then after immediately. So they're kind of blasting that insulin all the time in order hoping is going to build more muscles. I mean, absolute nonsense. they just can live without carbohydrates because they're hooked to it. And their energy stores are limited now when you rely on fat. I had a group of marathon runners that it took me months to convince that they would do much better if they eat more protein and fat and less carbohydrates. Oh, but Nash, when we run, we hit the wall, within first 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever it is, we hit the wall, then we need more carbs. And I'd say, okay, what was your run? 4 hours, a marathon. Fine. Why don't you try next one? Let's see what happens. Then they do next one and drop to 3. They just cannot believe. I didn't hit the wall. I said, that wall is your imaginary wall. You have created that wall. It's a nonsense. I've also trained people like professional Premier League footballers and boxers and swimmers and stuff like that. And they all responded much better once on high protein, high or medium fat diet. The problem with that diet, which I'm going to do the video on that, the biggest problem with high protein, low carb diet is that people don't eat enough protein. They just cut the carbs out and they remain on 100 grams of protein a day. And they think something is going to happen. No, you need to up that. So when you are on protein, high protein, low carb diet, you need to eat a lot of protein. That's it. Because you will need that protein. Most of that protein will be used for energy. Protein itself is very thermic macronutrient. Thermic effect of protein, it's up to 30%, meaning 30% of the calories that you eat from protein will be burned in order to digest itself. Yeah. So all that has to be understood. You're not going to get away with 100, 150 grams of protein. Maybe if you eat them in one meal, but not in a day. So
yeah, that's the thing. When I was growing up and doing sports, and I'm sure you came across this as well, that idea of the wall, this dreaded wall, we need to eat carbs to avoid the wall, or now they call it bonking. So you have to eat carbs and sugar in order so you don't hit the wall, you don't bonk. But when I was coming up, it was, you hit the wall and then you keep pushing and you keep going and then you can break through the wall and then you get your second wind and your runner's high and you can just go forever. And what I sort of came to realize, that's actually getting to the point, well, your insulin's up, you block lipolysis, you can't, raise your blood sugar, you can't raise your ketones, and then you will run out. You'll run out of glycogen, you'll run out of sugar, and then you'll hit the wall. And normally it takes 24 hours or so for you to get your insulin low enough so you can start producing these energies de novo. But if you're forcing this instead of dying, your body says, oh, okay, and it forces you into that ketogenic state. Now you can start burning fat and you can start raising your blood sugar through gluconeogenesis, and now all of a sudden you just feel amazing. And that's why I've never hit the wall when I'm in this, because when you're just eating proteins and fats, you live in your second when you're always past the wall. You've started past there. And and it's interesting you worked with the marathon runners, because that's actually been studied. There are controlled trials that have been done in elite ultramarathon runners and Ironman runners by McSweeney in 2018 that showed that they self-selected into keto and carb groups, so just fat and protein versus high carb, and then they gave them 3 months to adapt. And there is an adaptation period when you get optimal performance. You'll be able to turn on different epigenetic effects where you'll utilize ketones properly and more efficiently. And so after 3 months, they did a 100-mile run, long run, and a 6-second sprint, and then a critical power lifting test. So all the different ways you can move your body athletically, they did them. And these are, again, in elite athletes. And the ketogenic group, the protein and fat group, beat the carb group on all 3 of those exercises. And so any way you want to look at this is you don't need, and you actually don't want carbohydrates for optimal performance from an athletic point of view. If we're talking about bodybuilding and doing this, that, and well, maybe there's something that benefits you by having some carbs every now and then. But pure raw athletic expression, then that they found, at least in that study, and it wasn't 5,000 people, so there is that. But they found that was that they were outperforming the carb athletes, even though the carb athletes were sucking down the gels. And then there was the Volek and Finney faster trial, which was done in 2016, and looking specifically at glycogen. So exactly to your point, the body makes glycogen, and it has plenty of glycogen available. And they did muscle biopsies again on elite marathon runners and Ironman runners. And I have a whole video on this on YouTube called Ketogenic Carnivore Athletes that people can check out. And but they did muscle biopsies before a 3-hour run, directly after the 3-hour run, and then 3 hours after that in recovery. The carb group is sucking down gels and sugars and Gatorades and all that sort of stuff the whole time, and the keto group is just doing it. And they had already been keto. So some of these people had been keto for 3 years or more, average 22 months. So average was nearly 2 years. And not only were they performing at a very, very high level, their muscle glycogen was exactly the same before, after, and 3 hours after as the carb athletes who were sucking down these gels. So the idea that you have to have carbohydrate, you have to eat carbohydrates in order to replenish your glycogen just simply doesn't hold up.
Exactly. Yeah, but this is it's been known now. It's not a secret. The only problem is that comfort zone that I mentioned so many times, because it's much nicer to eat rice and pasta than just eggs and steak all the time. So
Yeah.
people like pleasures, and they are actually paying with their health and their lives for that pleasure. So, the question is again, do you live to eat, or do you eat to live? That question always hovers around those issues. So you need to make a choice.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Dr. Jocic, thank you so much for taking the time. This one we covered a lot of nutrition. We're going to be in the next episode. We're going to be covering training. So if people want to know about the optimal training, please keep an eye out for that as well. But please tell us. First of all, thank you, and also can you tell us you have a YouTube channel? It's just under your name, I believe, and which I've been sort of watching a lot of these videos recently. I really, really enjoyed them, which is why I reached out. But please let people know where they can find you. And also, do you have any, you mentioned you've written a number of books. Do you have any books on the subject of nutrition in this space as well?
Yes, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to talk in front of your viewers and followers. My YouTube channel is simply Dr. Nash Jocic, Jocic. And my website is nashfittraining.com. On that website, you can find all my ebooks and other services that I provide, and especially books about nutrition. There are a few about nutrition. So, yes, whoever is interested is more than welcome. And once again, thank you very much for having me on your show, on your channel.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we'll put all those links down below, and people can find them down there. And I do encourage people to go and check out your channel, because they have a lot of great videos, and with a lot of experience and wealth of knowledge, and you're having this lived experience. You were there. You saw these people train. You trained with them, and then you carried that forward, and you've been training like that ever since then as well, and having all these amazing results. And so I appreciate that. And oh God, I actually did forget to ask one question, but if I could maybe just one last thing. What was the where did that transition hit when everyone just said, hey, you need 500 grams of carbohydrates to be a bodybuilder? Because that took a while, after Arnold, didn't it? That people became like sort of carb monsters and things like that. When did that transition sort of change? When that happened, or who did that?
Absolutely, yes. It changed in the 90s with Dorian Yates.
Okay.
They discovered the powerful new hormone, which was relatively unknown and unused in the past, which is insulin. That hormone allowed people to build big muscles very quickly. It's a very dangerous exogenous insulin. It's a very dangerous compound.
Yeah.
And because of that insulin, they had to increase carbohydrates, because too much insulin in your body will constantly distribute the glucose blood sugar. So you need constant influx of carbohydrates. Hence, you have to eat 4, 5, 6 grams of carbohydrates a day, probably 100 grams in every meal. And this is what changed the game. This is why he was known as the first mass monster, simply because of that single compound. And then everything after that changed dramatically. Everybody had to follow. Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, Phil Heath, whoever is today, they're all on the same protocols. They're all taking that insulin. Obviously, when you are on insulin, you have to take carbohydrates because otherwise you're gonna die. Your brain is just gonna finish because if drop of sugar is detrimental, as you know. So this is the game changer: insulin bodybuilding. If you look until Dorian Yates and his victory in '92, all the way. Lee Haney, for example, Lee Haney wasn't a mass monster. He was great. He looks fantastic. Mr. Olympias before him, like Samir Bano, then you have Frank Zane, then you have everybody else in the past, Arnold and the boys. They looked amazing, but what they all had in common was small waist and vacuum pose. So their organs, intestine especially, were not overdeveloped. They were normal, and they could have performed that beautiful posing on the stage with the small waist, and every time even Lee Haney would do double biceps, and the phenomenal photos you can see his abs are just sinking in. They're disappearing. You're wondering, where are your organs? Now from '92, that story has died out. So now we don't have that anymore. We have bellies out because insulin is a merciless hormone, anabolic hormone, and it's going to make plus growth hormone together. They make all the tissues grow, even bones grow, like nose, jaws, elbows, feet, and all that. Also, organs grow, they get enlarged, and this, you can't hide it. Even if you get ripped, your belly is going to stick out. This is called bubble guts. This is very common today. I see a lot of people in the gym where I am training people in London who are always with it. You think they're fat, but they're not fat. You can see their six-pack. It's just the belly's out there. They're not flat anymore. And this is directly related to exogenous insulin, carbohydrates in the diet, and growth hormone. So this is the game changer. Serge Nubre used to say, I eat meat only before the show, and during the year, mostly meat, sometimes beans and rice. But this is why my midsection is so tight and flat, because of low presence of insulin. Now imagine you inject insulin. So on one side you had, I don't want insulin because it's going to make my guts grow, it's going to make me water retention, it's going to make me eat carbohydrates. And now the story has completely shifted. And now, yes, I need insulin, I'm going to inject insulin, and I'm going to eat carbohydrates simply because I have to. And this is why I'm going to do 2-3 hours cardio a day, because I have to burn that energy somehow. So how stupid that is, how idiotic that is, that you bring extra calories and then you do extra cardio in order to burn those extra calories. I mean, absolute madness. Who did cardio Sergio Oliva didn't do any cardio, Arnold didn't do any cardio, Serge Nubre didn't do any cardio. Nobody did cardio. If they needed, they trained twice a day. You're bodybuilder, you're not a runner. It's a nonsense. Now they're doing it because they have to do it. You have to do it with your 4 or 5 grams of carbs. You have to do hours of so-called cardio, which we talk about in the next video, which I don't buy that concept at all. So there is no such a thing as cardio exercise anyway. But yeah, this was the game changer, '92, and the era of insulin, which forced people to eat carbohydrates. Now I see them in the gym. They eat tons of rice, some a bit of chicken on the top, a few times in 4 or 5 hours. Where that goes, I know where it goes, and I know why it is, and I know what you're taking as well. Everything is written. Everything is written out there. The world is like an open book. All we need to do is just to look carefully and analyze.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting, and I hadn't known that. And the issue with that is too is that that totally makes sense. If you're using insulin as an anabolic steroid, then you obviously need carbs, or you can kill yourself. You can put yourself in a coma and die. But that's sort of gone down, filtered down into the ranks of high school kids that I need to put on muscle. I have to eat carbohydrates. They're not injecting insulin if they're smart. And so that's sort of defeats the purpose there as well. They're just going to be putting on fat basically, and then they're going to again having to do all that cardio and have to burn that fat again.
Nonsense.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolute nonsense.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for that. That was really interesting. I really appreciate it. And thank you guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Please do join us for round 2, where we'll be discussing optimal training then and now. And Dr. Jocic, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
More than welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks. Hey guys, thank you very much for taking the time out to listen to what I had to say. If you like it, then please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and podcast. And if you're on YouTube, then please hit that little bell and subscribe, and that'll let you know anytime I have a new video out, which should be every week, if not more. And if you could share this with your friends, that would help me get the word out and let me know that you like what I'm doing. Thanks again, guys.